start recording. All right. So, welcome everyone. My name is Andre Green. I'm a second year PhD student in electrical engineering. I'm also joined by Shafiq and Santiago, who you will hear from later on in the webinar. But thank you for all for joining our session on diversity in STEM at Cal. Live captioning and ASL interpretation is available, and this session is being recorded. Recordings will be shared after editing to ensure accessibility for everybody. And as questions come up for you, please put them in the Q&A. When possible, please avoid asking overly specific questions. If we see those, we may try to broaden them up just so that we can give general advice or information applicable for everyone in the session. It may not be possible for us to address all of the questions, but you can always reach out to the Office of Graduate Diversity at grad.diversity@berkeley.edu or meet with the Diversity and Community Fellows, which will be put in the chat for you all to click. And with that, let's begin the session. So, first and foremost, congratulations on your admittance into the University of California, Berkeley. We all know that it's a very pivotal moment and exciting opportunity for many of you when making your decision on where to continue your academic career. I know a few years ago myself, like I said, I'm a second year PhD student. I was super stressed out on what was best for me and where I was going to continue on with higher education. But our goal during this session is to provide everyone with a clear picture on what life at Cal is like, while focusing on one of our many organizations that support graduate students here at Cal. So for today's agenda, myself and my co-hosts, Shafiq and Santiago, we're going to touch on STEM First Year Initiative, also known as STEM FYI, as a whole. And prior to getting into some information about ourselves, we're going to touch on what we do, kind of our research areas, and then we're finally going to transition into a Q&A session towards the end. So if you do have any questions, we encourage you to drop them in the Q&A section attached to this webinar. And with that, let's get into STEM FYI. So to allow everyone to fully understand what STEM First Year Initiative is, we're going to go over our mission and strategies, along with funding that is available for our graduate students, as well as the impact that we leave on our community. So starting out with our mission, we are dedicated to increasing the success and retention of historically underrepresented students among all graduate STEM fields at UC Berkeley. We welcome all first year and continuing STEM scholars of color, women, LGBTQIA+, low income, first generation, disabled, and undocumented students to form an alliance with advanced graduate STEM ambassadors who are committed to building a strong and diverse community of future scientists. And here I'm going to transition off to Shafiq, who's going to give a bit more information on some of the strategies we use as an organization.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for that, Andre. So I'm going to talk through the strategies that we use through STEM FYI. Next slide. So we have a cohort of ambassadors across many STEM disciplines who support the program. They help organize and host events to build community, and they also mentor first-year scholars. We have over 60 first-year graduate students who participate. They join and they build community, and they often participate in STEM FYI throughout their graduate career. We also have an active listserv for reaching out to the wider STEM community at Berkeley with over 400 members. We have partnerships with STEM organizations on campus such as LAGSIS, BESA, SACNAS, BGES, ADSF, and Cal Nerds. We also have connections across 22 STEM departments at Berkeley, and we have funding from PPG, which provides $7,500 grants for technology and professional development, and who also fund an ambassador program with $150,000 in grants. Next slide, please. So more on the ambassadors here. Ambassadors provide a dedicated and diverse community of support for first-year scholars. We have a cohort of 19 actually ambassadors spanning over 10 STEM departments. And we make sure to include ambassadors who are underrepresented in STEM or identify as people of color, as well as first generation students. And we have, you can see their bios on our website, which we have more about here. Next slide. Next slide, please. So you can find more information on our website. Okay, so we host a variety of events throughout the year for academic events or professional development or social events for people to get together and build community. And we have several examples of past events on the next slide. So, some example events that we've held before, we've had Halloween get-togethers, cultural nights, mindfulness events, printmaking, Palentine's, a lot of social events where people can get together or work together. We actually just had a power hour where people were able to come together and work on things that they're getting for the research for writing. Next slide, please. Here's some pictures from past events with a lot of people wearing their STEM FYI t-shirts that people are really fond of. It's a great way to just build community amongst people who are just starting out at Berkeley and with older people who've had experience in STEM departments that they're entering. Next slide.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Shafiq. Hi everyone. My name is Santiago. I'm gonna be going over the funding section of our of STEM FYI. Um, so we actually have a really great partner through the PPG Foundation, as we've been mentioning. So they help us out with funding throughout the year, and this just overall helps us fund different initiatives throughout the program. So as you saw from Shafiq's like slides when he was going over the events that we do, all of that is possible because of the funding from the PPG Foundation. So because of that, like we said, we have ambassadors who are able to pay through the PPG Foundation grants. And in turn, those ambassadors help us plan events um, for the greater STEM FYI community as a whole. But not just that, we also have other opportunities for funding, such as um, professional development and some technology needs that we'll go over in the next slide. So if we can, yeah. So this is an example of a couple of grants that we're able to provide thanks to the PPG Foundation. So we have a STEM FYI Foundation professional development grant. So this could be used for anything such as travel to conferences or registration fees, things like that, that the greater STEMify community as a whole can use and take advantage of. And we also have a technology grant, which, as you can see, is $500 and can be used towards any technology need that you may have. So if you need to upgrade your computer or something like that, this is a great opportunity. And again, this is all due because of the generosity of the PPG Foundation. So it's just really cool overall. Like we said, all the events that we do, it's because of them. So it's really cool that we're able to offer this. Yeah, next slide, please. I guess we can move on to the impact. So as you can see here, this is just some examples of previous STEMify students who were able to take advantage of some of the services. So as you can see, like here, like a ton of our students have been able to go to conferences. A student here, I think we all know iPads are pretty important nowadays to be able to just keep up with your classes and have everything together. Like I can't live without mine. And they were able to use their technology grant to be able to get an upgrade for their studies. So overall, like this is something we do all the time, and you also should be able to take advantage of this. Um, and I believe you guys will be getting access to these slides, but we do have a link where you can also like look through all these social media posts and see the different ways that our students have been able to take advantage. Next slide, please. This is also just some more examples. Um, And yeah, we can go to the next slide. So like let's talk about a little bit more of the impact that we have and the sort of students that we reach. So we have a listserv. If you guys don't know what a listserv is, it's basically just a collection of emails of a ton of students. So we're able to reach over 380 students, graduate students here at Berkeley, STEM graduate students. And this has all happened just through organic growth. So kind of like word of mouth, just us hosting our events and people really enjoying what we do. And over the years, we just continue to grow. Every year we're starting to accept a little bit more ambassadors. So overall, like the community is growing. Uh, every single year we do a bunch of events. As we mentioned, every we have a bunch of ambassadors who get into groups to plan events. So um, we've had like 10 plus events every year. This year, we're already on track. I think we've had around nine, and we still are planning more throughout the semester. Um, we also, like we mentioned, we do financially support graduate STEM students. And this is through the grant funding that we've been talking about. And so this could be like the technology grant or the professional development grant. But this all goes out to our students. And like we mentioned, we have all the collaborations with different organizations throughout the school, throughout the college. So Laxis, EGIS, SACNAS, BCP, Figley Scholars, GWE, QB3, GWP, that just help us even like host bigger events and reach more students. Um, yeah, so this could be you. If you do decide to come here, like you would be able to be part of this community. Um, it's just overall like it's a really good way to meet people, socialize, uh, take advantage of great events. Like some events are just school wise, like you can do really cool things like studying sessions with free food, but we also do fun events like game nights and things like that. So overall, it's a really good way to find community when you first get here. It is a larger school, so this is just a really good way to find community, and we hope that you can join us. Yeah, so if you have any questions or feedback, here are all three of our emails that you can find, and please feel free to reach out with any questions you may have. Um, so we're gonna move on to our next section. So again, I'm gonna introduce myself a little bit more in depth. So my name is Santiago Caram. Um, I'm doing a master's in industrial engineering and operations research. It's a 1 year program, and this is my second semester already, so I'll be done soon. Um, but yeah, I'll give a chance for Andre and Shafiq to introduce themselves again.
Yeah, thanks, Santiago. Hello once again. My name is Andre Green. I'm a second year PhD student in the Electrical Engineering and Computer Science department, and most of my research it focuses on computer architecture and digital integrated circuit design. So essentially, I just make computer processors.
Yeah, and hi again. I'm Shafiq. I'm a PhD student in the Electrical Engineering and Computer Sciences department where I work in computational biology.
Yeah, so now we're going to be having a Q&A section. Um, so yeah, we're going to take some questions from the audience, and if you do have any questions, please type them into the chat so we could try to um, address this. So I do see a question already. Thank you so much. The question is a PPG Foundation funding available to both master's and PhD students? Um, I think I see here, Shelly. It says, I don't know if I'm confused. It says that you're going to answer this question live, but I guess I can answer it. Yes, the funding is available to all graduate STEM students at Berkeley. So whether you're a master's or PhD students, you should be able to take advantage of the resources that STEM FYI provides.
Yeah, and moving into another question, I guess for both of you, Shafiq and Santiago, why did you choose to come to Cal?
I've been speaking a lot, so Shafiq, you can go first, and then I'll take it. I'll answer the question after.
Yeah, what was the question?
Why did you decide to come to Berkeley?
Oh, yeah. So I feel like I was just really interested in the work going on here. I actually had read a paper from my advisor before I was admitted at the company I was at, and it seemed like it was a really interesting direction to go in. So I was motivated by the work going on at Berkeley. I also had a brother who was going to Berkeley, and I had heard really good things about it.
Yeah. So for me, I actually did my undergrad here at Cal as well. So you could kind of see where this is going. I just love my time here. I like I love my department. I love that it's a huge school, but my program's on the smaller side. My class was only around 40 students. So I was really able to build community and really get to know all of my professors and the department overall. And then they offered this really cool program where I could get a master's in just 1 year, and it's only offered to Berkeley undergrads in engineering. So I already love my time here. Honestly, I love the education that I got from my undergrad. And I did have a few more options, but ultimately, this was just the best opportunity for me. And I had no complaints really from the department, just the support system that I had. Um, so it was kind of like a no-brainer for me to stay here, along with all the opportunities for engineering here in the Bay Area.
Yeah, so I think mine was pretty similar as well. So I'm from Pennsylvania, grew up there, lived there for 22 years, and originally I went to Penn State. So I did electrical engineering and computer engineering over there. So I was stuck between Berkeley and Georgia Tech. And honestly, for like a year and a half, I thought I was gonna go to Georgia Tech. I was hard set on that. And then Berkeley flew out their PhD students for their visit day, and they completely flipped me. They caught me, locked me in, and then I think it's because of like the career opportunities as well as what I do in integrated circuit design. Berkeley is one of one. They're one of the best in the world for that type of research. So I think in terms of like really developing myself as an engineer, that was, the best decision that I could have made. And I
Yeah,
do see another question. Oh, you can go ahead, Santiago.
yeah. I was just gonna read out the next question. The question is, as a prospective student admitted, can we apply to PPG to offset tuition cost? Uh, Unfortunately, as I mentioned, we do not award traditional fellowships or stipends in that sense, but we do allocate stipends to different like, initiatives such as the technology grant and the professional development grant. Um, but as part of STEM FYI and PPG, we don't. We're unfortunate. We have such a large community. We're not really able to offset tuition costs. But I hope that answers your question.
And I do see another question. It says, what STEM projects do students participate in through the student club? So I don't know if any of you guys are also involved in other clubs. Maybe you guys want to touch on that.
I can speak to it a bit. I think what you're getting at is actually like building like projects that have like some like STEM component to them, and there's less of that type of club for graduate students. Most of the graduate clubs are more about building community. So like BJAS and LAGSES, it's like ways to have support from people who are doing similar programs as you, who have come from similar backgrounds. But for the most part, people are pretty focused on their graduate projects. And it's possible you can meet people through the clubs who you can collaborate on research down the line. But there's not a lot of projects driven through the clubs. I don't know if either of you have experienced otherwise.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, Santiago probably knows more because he was here for undergrad. I'm also involved in BGIS, which is our Black Graduate Engineering and Science students. I'm on the exec board for that. And we're actually flying out to Chicago for the NSB conference next week. So that's some exciting stuff. I don't know if any of you guys will be there, but come find me at the Berkeley table. But yeah, in terms of like specific like project wise, I haven't been a part of that, but I think there's a lot of professional development and career opportunities that you can also get from these clubs. So I mean, we have hundreds of different clubs that you can still be involved in as a graduate student, so don't feel like those opportunities won't be there for you. And I also do see another question saying, I'm debating about grad school. I'm working now and is transitioning back from work to grad school difficult? So I can actually answer that. I was working at IBM for about a year and a half concurrently while finishing up undergrad. So I was already kind of on the industrial route. And I was thinking about staying there. I was over in upstate New York. But for me, I felt like I didn't have a deep enough foundation to really do what I wanted to with my future career because I want to run a research lab. So is it hard to transition back to work? No, I don't think it's hard like transitioning in that sense. I think it really depends as to why you're going to graduate school, you know? Like I feel like having some sort of personal reason for it, deeper than, oh, someone told you graduate school is a good idea, I think it's great for you. I had some personal reasons. I wanted to, really develop myself as an engineer, but I think you have plenty of opportunities to grow here at Cal and you'll become better at your work before you go back to industry. And we do have some more questions. Are there funding opportunities open to international students? If no, then can you direct us to some resources for internationals? I don't know if either you, Santiago, or Shafiq have information on that.
Uh, I'm not quite sure. I believe it should be open to international students, since these are just like small grants that we do. Um, but I think this may be a good question to direct to graduate diversities to be able to answer like in full detail. It should be, but I just don't want to guarantee that it is applicable. I believe, like I said, I believe that it is, but just to get confirmation, and I say you email grad.diversity.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback on what Santiago said, feel free to reach out for any questions that we might not be able to answer in this session. Grad.diversity, there are a lot of people who will have the answers for you. So in terms of that specific question, swing us an email, or you could even reach out to the DNC fellows. We have a link to all of our individual one-on-one sessions, so you can meet with us on a personal level and ask some more questions on that. And then I do see another question. For those who commute to Berkeley from San Francisco or elsewhere, do you find it hard to engage with community on campus?
Yeah, I can definitely tackle that because I live in San Francisco. So I could definitely say, so the first 3 years or so, I was in Berkeley, and then I moved to San Francisco, and you definitely feel a change of like having to go to Berkeley to go for events. So you do have like that kind of distance, but I have built up my own community in San Francisco. So I think this like the way I did it makes sense of like having like your first few years in Berkeley to build that community, and then also a lot of my friends moved to San Francisco in that meantime too. So you will feel some distance, but you can also like put more effort in to be able to maintain those connections.
Yeah. And then I was just gonna pitch in a little bit for this. Um, Not from personal experience, but actually from one of our ambassadors. So one of our ambassadors is also new to Cal's. They're doing their first year PhD, and they also commute, and they're doing like a joint UCSF UC Berkeley program where they honestly for the first semester they were taking all their classes in SF at the UCSF campus. And they actually joined STEM FYI for that same reason, where they were trying to build community, given that they were just commuting so much and they didn't spend enough time on campus. So they kind of wanted to force themselves to like be part of a program that would just help them be around a greater community. So they decided to join as an ambassador. Um, and overall, they've been great to work with. I've actually become close friends with them. So definitely, like I said, STEMify is a good way to find community within this larger college, as we know, and especially if you like find it hard because of the commute and stuff, where you're not spending as much time on campus. STEMify, like being involved with us, is a great way to build community. Yeah. So I do see another question in the chat, and this one's directed towards me. But the question is, Hello, Santiago. I am really interested in hearing about your experience in a short program. Um, did I find that I have, or the question was, did you find that you have enough time to focus on the master's while making the most of professional and social opportunities? Uh, yes. So I actually, I there are a couple things I can say. And maybe this can help you learn from my experience. But since it's a 1 year program, as we know, like you're only going to be taking classes, and I made the mistake, honestly, of doing most of my requirements in my first semester. So my first semester was like extremely heavy. I had a bunch of technical classes. I basically did all my requirements in one, and I struggled. Like it was a lot of work. I still had time to, focus on my social life and all that, and also be involved with like STEM FYI. Like I said, I'm also involved. Another two programs on campus. So even though, yeah, I still had all of that work and I honestly should have balanced my schedule a little bit better, I still had a chance to be involved in things like STEM FYI. Uh, but I would maybe recommend that you do try to balance out your schedule a little bit better because this semester I'm a lot more free and it's really nice. Like I'm having a really nice time now. But it was definitely difficult last semester. So I would just say like maybe try to balance out the amount of classes that you're taking between the 2 semesters. But you should totally be fine. Even with me having done all that work in the first semester, like I said, I still had time to be involved in 3 different organizations around campus. So you should be okay.
Okay, I do see some other questions, but while you're talking, Santiago, we did just get another one that says, as a short-time master's student, did you have any challenges finding clubs, research, or on-campus work? And I think Santiago might have dropped out for now. We'll get back to that question once he pops back on. But Shafiq, as another PhD student, we did get a question that says, for PhD students, what if my temporary advisor is not a good fit for me? Is it possible to change advisors? And if so, how does that work?
Yeah, definitely. So I will speak from the perspective of as an EEC student. I don't know what department you're in, but we have to make it very flexible to change temporary advisors. I actually changed from my temporary advisor in my first year. And it's a really flexible program that you can go and shop around and go to people's lab meetings and be able to get to know what type of research you're doing, what the relationship is like with your students, and how that mentorship is carried out in the lab. So it's fairly easy to, as long as they have, like, say, funding and time to take on new students, and they'll tell you up front if they don't, you can go and look into different advisors and be able to officially switch.
Great. And yeah, I can kind of piggyback on that as well. So I've also switched the temporary advisor that I was given when I joined Berkeley. So I guess for my situation, I kind of knew who I wanted to work for. I also applied to the NSF GRFP program, and for my research proposal, I targeted a specific professor at Berkeley. So when I was assigned my temporary advisor, it wasn't the person who I wanted to work for, but I was very upfront with them, letting them know the research I wanted to pursue. And it was very easy to just go into both of their lab meetings, kind of gauge it out. But at Berkeley, it's really nice. You don't have to choose your permanent advisor until I believe it's May of your first year. So you get about a full academic year to kind of pinpoint your research interests, go through some classes, and then most temporary advisors are pretty open to allowing for you to transition if you're really not enjoying your area. So it's very flexible, as Shafiq said, and it's one of the nice perks that we do have at Cal. And then Santiago, do you want to, I guess, touch back on the question that you were answering previously?
Yeah, that's okay. And I apologize, my computer died, but I'm back. So the question is, as a short-time master student, did you have any challenges finding clubs, research, or on-campus work? Um, so honestly, my experience may differ a little bit from yours, given that I spent my undergrad here. So I was a little like a lot more familiar with just the landscape in general. But I will say, like opportunities for grad school and undergrad students are pretty different. So even though I kind of knew how to get around, the opportunities were definitely new for me to find. And one thing I was able to do, and one way I was honestly had a much easier time finding opportunities, is that I got involved with just the Office for Graduate Diversity. And that's how I was able to hear about STEM FYI. Like I had no clue about this. I had no clue about the diversity and community fellows. But just because I decided to meet with which I actually met with who's my boss now, I guess, or my program director for another program I'm doing. I met with them just to kind of chat about different opportunities that the Office for Graduate Diversity offers, and it was through there that I was able to find out about it. So, um, it is a little bit more difficult, I'd say, if you've never been here. But again, my advice is like just get involved, get engaged, like talk to people, set up meetings. It's just gonna put you on their radar, and you're just gonna be able to hear about these opportunities because you do have to look for these opportunities, but there are definitely plenty. And yeah, that's just my advice. Just get involved with these programs, and it should be okay.
Great. Thanks, Santiago. I do have a question for you, Shafiq. How do ambassadors join STEM FYI?
Yeah, definitely. So we have an application process that we send out usually at the start of the academic year. We'll have like an email that go to our listserv. So you should just join the listserv and keep your eye out for that time period. And then we have applications every year for people to be accepted as ambassadors.
Great. Yeah. Pretty short and simple. Back to you, Santiago. You're getting a lot of traction today. So, will the one-year program be too short for international students to adjust to the environment and further find the job after graduation? And were there any examples around you?
Um, by examples, like, do you mean examples of international students who've been here for a year or like,
I'll leave it up to
yeah,
your interpretation.
yeah, okay. Um, yeah, so I'm not quite sure in terms of like the international scene, and like how that affects, but definitely, it's like having a shorter program kind of in a way, it's like a blessing and a curse because you only have it's a short time for you to kind of get acclimated to the university, to the different resources, but it's also in a way forces you to kind of get more engaged and try to make the most out of the program because it is just one year. So honestly, I think seeing it in that sense that you don't have as much time kind of motivates you to look out for opportunities and to network and to just get involved in as many things as you want because you want to take advantage of your time here. So I think you will find that you will get a lot out of it because of that reason. And that's how I see it. Like I'm leaving now, so I just try to get involved in as many things as I could. In terms of the job search, I'm not like fully sure. I definitely know that at least like because I have friends still who are undergrads, like they're a year younger than me. I definitely do think like having a master's or doing a master's has helped with getting interviews just from what I've seen like from my friends and stuff who are undergrads and the grad ones like the grad ones with the masters have been able to get a lot more interviews so in that sense I think it's helped so regardless of how short the program is I think just like having a master's or a graduate degree in general will help you in your job search.
Awesome. Thank you, Santiago. We do have another one. What's something incoming students might not expect about life at Berkeley? So this one's pretty open-ended. I'll let you two think about that while I answer. I guess one way to answer it, just like a transition from undergrad to graduate school, it's definitely like a big transition. Like I felt like the workload and stuff was a lot busier and you're a lot more independent as a graduate student. So that was something that I kind of knew would happen, but I wasn't really expecting it. But at the same time, what I didn't expect was that Berkeley is very welcoming in terms of their graduate students and their professors. So I felt like even though I kind of got hit with imposter syndrome as soon as I came here, a lot of the graduate students and the professors, they welcomed me with open arms and they were really accommodating in terms of helping me transition into graduate studies. So I didn't feel like I was behind in any way. They were able to, give me more researches academically, as well as just like give me some things to do outside of the academic scene. So in terms of just like what to expect, I mean, come in with optimism. And I think, you will be very surprised as to how many great opportunities you can have at an institution such as Cal.
Yeah, I'd say like for me, I guess one thing that you might not expect um, is like if you're coming from a smaller school, just I guess we know like Cal is very large. There are a ton of students here on campus. Um, you may not be aware of the amount of opportunities and just different resources and programs that exist just because it's so large. Um, and like that's honestly in a way it's hard to find opportunities, but in a way it's also like really fun in the sense that like there's honestly like something for you. Um, so there's just so many different things that I found later on in my, like I said, I did my undergrad here, so I found throughout my later years in my undergrad career. But there are different programs such as like Cal Nerds and stuff which is also a STEM organization on campus to help undergrads get into graduate school, but they also work with a lot of grad students. And it's just a really cool space. It has a bunch of study rooms. It has like Zoom meeting rooms. It has a snack pantry. Um, it has like they also help you with funding to go to conferences. They took me to SACNAS. They offer a bunch of different research programs. So this is made the research was for undergrads, but they also allow graduate students to work as graduate student directors to serve as mentors to the undergrads. So there are just a lot of smaller organizations throughout campus that you might not be aware of. But that's the really cool thing about this, that just there's so many, and there's honestly like something for everyone. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess kind of pinpointing on that, you touched on all these different opportunities that students have at Cal. So, what about in terms of outreach and teaching? How can students get involved with teaching or these outreach opportunities? And this could either be Santiago or Shafiq, who could chime in as well.
Yeah, I think so when you say teaching, I think of like two different types. There's like actual like being a graduate student instructor versus like teaching where an outreach where you're like saying going to community college students or high schoolers or even outreach like Cal undergrads. So for like GSIing, being an actual like TA here, there'll probably be like for many programs. I'm pretty sure all programs have like some type of requirement to teach in that regard overall. So you'll definitely have opportunities to do that, and some advisors, depending on their funding situation, might also require it more or less than others. So you'll have lots of teaching opportunities to grow your teaching abilities if you want to be a professor in the future. So that's definitely something that's guaranteed, at least through the PhD program. I think you also have the opportunity to be a GSI as a master's student, but I'm not as familiar with that process. Outreach, there's also lots of opportunities to be mentors for either high school students or undergrads, either at Berkeley or other colleges nearby. There's several different programs through things like clubs like BJS or Laxis, or just through like interacting with undergraduate clubs like BESA on campus, which is the Black Science undergraduate club. So there's lots of opportunities to get involved. And there's also people who reach out to Berkeley students to join outreach opportunities because people really value our expertise and want to be able to look to you as mentors.
And while you're speaking, Shafiq, this is kind of tangentially related, but are these teaching requirements funded? And what are the funding opportunities available for graduate students at Cal?
Yeah, so GSIing, being a TA, is funded. So that's what I meant by depending on the funding situation, because usually you'll be teaching in place of getting a grant or fellowship or being paid by your advisor for that semester. So yes, being a GSI is funded. For the outreach opportunities, I've heard of some that are funded, but I think that's more rare. It's usually like a volunteer position. Um, so I wouldn't consider outreach to be something that I would expect to be funded. But yes, there are several funding opportunities available either through teaching. You also apply for fellowships, and Berkeley has internal fellowships that I believe you don't have to apply for. Chancellor's Fellowship that they select people to get from when they are admitted to Berkeley. So there's several funding opportunities, or either even just funding through your advisor as well.
Yeah, and I was just gonna chime in a little bit for this question as well. So I think Andre or Shafiq, you mentioned you're not too familiar with like being a TA as a master's student. You definitely can. At least in my department, like the way it works is we're a smaller department. We don't offer as many classes. I believe as part of the funding package for PhD students, they have to be TAs. So they'll try to allocate the TA positions to the PhD students. And if there are any leftover positions, then they're offered to master students. Uh, and as you know, for master students, like your tuition is not covered. So being a TA actually pays for your tuition and it pays you on top of that. So yeah, it's definitely funded. It's a good opportunity as a master's. Like if you're able to land that, then you would be able to pay for your education. And in terms of like paid outreach opportunities, like I said, I'm involved in a couple more organizations throughout campus. One of them called Gigs, which is the Getting into Graduate School program, where we basically mentor undergrad students to help them get to grad school. And as part of it's a mentoring program. So as part of this program, we have around like 60 graduate student mentors who are paid $1,000 per year. So if that's kind of what you mean by outreach and you're like helping out other mentees and you're able to like get involved with the program, do different panels and stuff, you do get paid $1,000 per year through that program.
Yeah, and for some specific fellowships, just to close out this question before we transition to another one. So one thing I do want to emphasize, graduate school is free. And what I mean by that is there are countless funding opportunities, not just at Cal, but also external fellowships that you can apply to your graduate funding. So I'm a GEM fellow, so that's GEM fellow, and I'll throw that in the chat in a second. This is essentially an industry sponsored fellowship. What you can do is, I believe around November is their deadline every year, but you get matched to a company, especially if you want to go into industry. And what ends up happening is you get a guaranteed fellowship, and then you also get a guaranteed internship for the summer after you apply. So for master's students, this one covers your full tuition, and then it also gives you a stipend associated with it. For PhD students, your tuition is essentially already covered for the majority of departments. I can't speak for every single one, but you still receive, I think right now it's about a $22,000 stipend for 1 year, and then you get an internship opportunity. And thank you, Shelly, for throwing that in the chat. Feel free to click that below. There is another funding opportunity. It's called NSF GRFP program. That's the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program. I would say that's probably one of the oldest and most prestigious fellowships that is offered for graduate students. This provides the number may be different right now, but across 3 years, it's about $147,000. So it's about 49,000, 12,000 of which goes directly to the school, and the other 39,7,000 goes to the student. But this pays for a very large majority as a PhD student of your funding. So I got busy during my undergrad. I applied to both the GEM, I applied to NSF, and then also Shafiq mentioned the Chancellor's Fellowship. I'm not sure if that's specifically for the EECS department, but other departments might have similar internal fellowships. I was blessed enough to get awarded all three of these fellowships. So I think going into graduate school, I received about $271,000 of guaranteed funding. So most of the time, you're going to get funding from your department from GSI, GSR. But if you do your homework, you do your research, you can still apply to these fellowships and kind of get yourself that funding secured. But yeah, feel free to click the links in the chat. Those are the two fellowship programs that I applied to. But there's plenty of opportunities that you also don't need to apply to. Just by having your name get admitted into Berkeley, your department does offer some other funding. And I think Shafiq, there is a question for you. What's it like being a part of the says biology department at Berkeley? Given Cal's great reputation for biology research and innovation, do you generally find that it is welcoming, or is there some level of elitism or competitiveness slash high performance when interacting with other students and professors?
So, just to be clear, I'm part of the East Department, Electrical Engineering, Computer Science. So I don't have like any interaction with the actual biology department. I just work in computational biology, and even then, like my advisor is at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. So I'm pretty separated out from anything that's going on in the actual biology department. I'd say in general, I don't feel any like level of elitism through the people I've interacted with. I think it tends to be like a pretty collaborative environment. Everything is very lab specific though, because I'm not in the biology department, but I'm sure there's different labs in the department that have like different cultures. So I definitely look at that as you're joining Berkeley and like talking to professors and talking to the grad students here, just getting a feel for the culture of each lab. In general, I'd say like I've loved Berkeley and I'd say it's a very collaborative place, but like I just check out that you feel like the culture of the lab that you're joining fits what you're looking for.
Great. And maybe Santiago, you can touch on this. While starting your graduate studies, did any of you feel like you were not good enough to join such a good university and that you were not good at anything specifically in a field like STEM? And how did you overcome this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer this. So I think, of course, like I'd be lying if I told you that I did not experience this. I think imposter syndrome is a very real thing that likely all of us have felt at some point. Um, Now, the way I'm going to tackle this is that I will say, so like I keep saying this, but I did my undergrad here. And honestly, I guess I was not prepared for the the jump in difficulty from undergrad to graduate level studies. So when I came here, like I don't know why in my head, like I thought I'd be taking master's classes, but since it's an MS program, so Master of Science, I was basically in all the PhD classes, just surrounded by PhD students because my MS programs, it's only 8 of us, so it's very small. Um, and everyone else was PhD students who, like, as you know, like if they're doing a PhD is because they have a very clear kind of like motivation or sort of a research area that they want to tackle. And my program is not a research program. I was kind of just like, I wanted to kind of like Andre said, I wanted to just better myself as an engineer, but I wasn't going in there with like I guess with a focus on academia or like just a research area I wanted to learn more about. I was more so just like, oh, I want to improve myself as an engineer. So just like getting into my classes and just being surrounded by a bunch, like a lot of really brilliant PhD students, I definitely felt like I didn't belong. And like maybe it wasn't for me because the classes were extremely difficult, like I said. Um, but in a way, this kind of served as a motivation because I was like, okay, I actually got to work a lot harder than I did during my undergrad. Um, and that helped me out a ton. And at the end of the day, like I actually ended up getting pretty good grades, which like that just goes to show it was all in my head. And it was difficult. I had to work much harder than an undergrad, but you definitely belong here. Like you were admitted for a reason. And if you weren't good enough or if you didn't have what it takes to excel in a place like this, um, you wouldn't be in this position. So you definitely are. You have what it takes. And just kind of like keep on going because like you are good enough and at the end of the day like you will realize and like it'll be so I guess it'll be so satisfying because you're like oh wow like I really did that and you'll be super proud um so yeah I hope that answered your question.
Santiago, have you ever been told you should be a motivational speaker? Because like I feel uplifted after hearing all of that.
No,
Um,
no, I haven't, but yeah, definitely like that was a real struggle I had last semester. So it's like I think it's an important conversation to have. And I'm sure, like I said, like all of us have lived through that at some point of our studies, whether that was undergrad or whether you're going to experience it for the first time, like, or not for the first time, but maybe you will. But I definitely had some of that during undergrad as well, but it was a different experience for grad school.
Yeah, I'll just really quickly piggyback on that. I know we're kind of running short on time, but yeah, for like Santiago said, we've all experienced imposter syndrome. I mean, I feel like that's the typical case for most STEM students, especially if you're going to graduate school, but you got into Berkeley, so obviously somebody thought you were good enough to succeed in a higher education. And chances are they're probably right. I mean, they do this for a living, but even for myself, like, so for PhD programs, I know each department's different, but for the EECS department, and Shafiq has went through this, we have to pass a prelim exam. It's essentially just an exam. It's oral exam. So you stand in front of a whiteboard, you talk to a bunch of professors, and they just grill you for an hour on like any topic that's in your specialization. So you need to pass that in order to stay in the program. I ended up failing my first time, and you only get two guaranteed times to take that exam before you're kind of on the chopping block to make sure you stay in. So at that point, I mean, imposter syndrome was kicking my behind. I thought, oh, I'm not worthy of being here. I got to drop out, go back to industry. But I was able to speak with graduate students, lock in, and I was able to pass this past January. So, whatever struggles you go through, other graduate students have also gone through it. So don't think that you're not meant to be here because you're exactly at the place where you should be. And then I'll transition into another question that I do see. What are strategies that you recommend for finding and securing a GSI position? And then are there any lesser known opportunities, networking tips, or departments that are more open for GSIs? I haven't GSI'd yet, so can one of
Yeah.
you answer?
I can take this on even though I haven't GSI'd, but I do like I have like all my friends have lived through this and it was like a very real thing that I saw like when they were going through it and how they were able to land GSI positions. But I think a really good tip and a thing you should be doing is getting to know your professors. So whether this is like asking a lot of questions during class, talking to them after class, especially going to their office hours. I think building a personal relationship with your professors will just give you the edge when it comes to landing those GSI positions. Because at the end of the day, it is the professors who pick. who they like to have as a GSI student or as a GSI. So I have a friend who was super close to a professor, and like they were able to just secure it just because of their relationship, secure that position over like right away as a master's student. And even after that, like I said, my program was full of PhDs. So we had too many PhDs who needed GSI positions. So they didn't have anything for masters for the second semester. But since he had such a strong relationship with this professor ended up offering him a research position for the semester. So just like building that connection and that relationship with your professors will definitely give you an advantage when it comes to securing different GSI positions around campus.
All right, perfect. I think I'm gonna reshare my screen now. It looks like we're coming to a close here. But yeah, Shafiq, if you'd like to close us out for the session.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you all for coming. It was great to answer your questions, and I hope we were helpful to you. And we hope that you choose the program that's best for you. But if that happens to be Berkeley, we hope to see you in the fall or whenever you join, and hope to see you at future STEM FYI events.
And also feel free to use the links below if you want to stay in contact. You have our personal emails if you want to reach out. You can also reach out to Grad Diversity if you're interested in that. Thank you everybody for coming out, and we hope you enjoy your day.